My April was not the best, but it was also not the worst. As a matter of fact, there were moments when it could have gotten worse, but thankfully, I didn't let it be so. While on the other hand, there were moments I thought I was living the ideal student life, but regretfully, I didn't let it be so either. April was a month of pulling from both ends. Some days, my shadow prevailed, while other days, my better sense. In order to elucidate on my routine, let's start with the beginning, the morning. I think I began April with a fairly decent sleeping pattern. Though it was far from my ideal, it wasn't too bad. Part of it could have been because I had morning classes, but most of all it was because I slept well the night before. It was in the middle of April that my routine began to go haywire. I caught the train of excessively playing computer games, and before I knew it, I had already long forgotten to deboard that train. I call these moments falling into a rut. Falling into a rut has many connotations for me. I might binge play a computer game, binge watch an anime, binge read a manga, or binge on my libidinous urges. Whatever the case may be, it always strikes a discord in my routine. The pernicious effects of this rut began to manifest themselves in my waking patterns. I began progressively sleeping late. As a result, I began waking up late. By and by, I drifted far from my ideal waking time. The repercussions of waking late led me to miss my morning classes, lose out on a good chunk of the day, and guilt-tripping myself into destabilizing my sense of esteem and efficacy. And I didn't like it. My internal alarms were blaring at me to take action and get myself out of that rut. And I did. I got myself to do the things which aligned with my sense of productivity, like reading newspaper, doing assignments, and preparing for my examination. I even got myself to restart exercising and cut down on unhealthy meals. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, April was a month of pulling from both ends. I would stumble into a rut one day, but the next I would manage to crawl out of it, only to fall back into another rut, and getting out of it a few days later. This excessive pulling from both ends resulted in the destabilization of order and a chaotic sense of being. I had mentioned that I began to wake up late. This also meant that after waking up, the first thought which would confront me would be those of guilt. Questions like, what's the point of waking up now? Half the day is already gone. And you might as well waste the next few hours. What does it matter anymore? Were not uncommon. Dealing with these thoughts was the most important matter of the day. Some days I gave in to my weaknesses and waited for motivation to get me out of bed, thereby losing out on additional 2 hours. And sometimes I managed to keep the flame of passion burning and tried to salvage the rest of the day. It was during these haphazard morning routines that I realized that things could always get a lot worse. A bad start to a day could turn into a bad day altogether, while on the other hand, a bad start could be salvaged by a productive afternoon and evening. My sense of responsibility was all over the place. I worked on my assignments on the last day of deadlines. I chucked off responsibility of helping my siblings read and study. I abandoned my workout routine I had worked so hard to build the previous month. It seemed that I had developed an unhealthy tolerance to stress, which prohibited me from utilizing my eustress. I could only tap into my eustress at the very cusp of deadlines. I was not happy with these developments. But there seemed to be only so much that I was able to do. The will to do was certainly there, but the ability to get it done seemed to be lacking. April ended on such a note. It seems that I was still waiting for a miracle or a turning point which would change my routine for the better. The more I waited for such a chance, the more trapped I felt in the rut. But then again, picking myself up from the dirt and trying to make progress also didn't seem to be working too well. In spite of the bleak turn April took towards its conclusion, what I believe, or rather wish to believe, is that what truly matters are baby steps. One small step forward after another. By and by, I can make progress, regardless of how slow in comparison with others. As long as I'm able to continue making progress, things can always get better. Thus, April gave way to May.